Well, hello, everybody. This is Larry from the Blue Collar Nation podcast. And I'm here with my slick business partner, Mr. Eric Sprague, the Tech Whisperer. What's happening, slick business partner, Tech Whisperer?
Dude, I've been called a lot of things, many of them bad. Nobody's ever called me slick.
Oh, no, dude. You're slick with the techs. They connect with you. You're the same vibe. You guys vibe off each other. Slick, man. You're way cool with the techs. So stand back. Tech Whispers.
Did you just open a thesaurus and grab the first word you saw?
No, I must have saw it on a poster earlier in the day and it just got popped into my head. So we ran with it.
Slick. All right. Now you're slick.
Yeah,
Me, not so much.
Yeah. Well, I try and get you to be slick. Sometimes you can be slick, which is very cool.
All right.
All right. So anyway, this podcast is sponsored by Super Tech University. So check it out. If you're not good with your technicians as an owner, you don't know how to connect with them. We give you a forum every day for 5 minutes to talk and connect with them about a pertinent topic that you don't have to prep. We help you get access to your techs one-on-one, where you might not be able to in the past. So if you need to connect with your techs so that they do a better job with a lesson every single day that has to do with making technicians better at taking care of your clients, go to supertech.com, Supertech University, supertechu.com. Tough for me to say. And you can see some sample lessons of Eric being slick.
Ron, we just rebranded. Larry's still learning the new domain name.
I even have it written down on my pad right here.
Well, it sounded slick to me.
Yeah, right on. So check it out. Back to the podcast. We've got Ron Holt with us, and Eric's been on Ron's podcast, which we're very excited about.
Yeah.
And Ron is the former CEO of Two Maids and a Mop, which he sold in September of 2021 last year. Now he's the founder of Pink Zebra Moving, which is a franchise, pinkzebramoving.com. And he's got an amazing story, and he's going to tell us about his podcast. What is exactly the name of your podcast, Ron?
So believe it or not, this is good and bad news, according to who you ask. But with the sale of Two Maids and a Mop last year, I had to hit a pause button on the podcast. But it was a home service based podcast with an appropriate name called Cleaning Up, right?
Yeah.
So, there you go.
But with the sale of Two Maids and a Mop, we kind of had to move forward in a different direction. So we're gonna come back to the podcast world here in the near future. But I'm mired in startup world right now, so we're focused on options.
Yeah, you weren't going to be podcasting anyway. I read a couple of your LinkedIn posts, so we'll talk about those.
Anyway, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, Ron. And let's get on with the podcast. You got the floor, Mr. Sprague. Yay!
Just want to applaud Ron for coming on. Yeah, Ron, we've kind of known each other for a couple of years. I was on your podcast when you were doing Two Maids and a Mop. And I think before we do anything and get into Pink Zebra and all the franchising stuff, why don't you maybe just tell the listeners your background, where you come from, and what you like to do when you're not working, and then just kind of the career trajectory.
Absolutely. So I'll try to make this quick because, like you said, if you've read any of my content, I use a lot of words. So I started Two Maids and a Mop all by myself now more than 20 years ago on April Fool's Day of 2003. I guess that's not more than 20 years
funny.
ago. Right.
So was it really one guy in a mop at the beginning?
It was in those early days. We were in Pensacola,
been there.
Yeah, we were in Pensacola, Florida. I knew nothing about cleaning. I remember I was a young guy at the time, and I remember telling my parents I've started a cleaning business that's going to take over the world. And
so real quick before we move on, what prompted you to pick that?
So it's a very similar story as what we have now at Pink Zebra Moving. I felt strong as a consumer that the residential cleaning industry had some really good traits that nobody really noticed. One, there was strong demand. This was 20 years ago. There was strong demand. There's even more now. Two, it was a very fragmented marketplace, mostly populated by folks who just literally go to Walmart and buy a broom and a vacuum cleaner and call themselves a cleaning company.
Sure.
And so you had this broken market, that had a lot of demand. And so I felt like, even though there were some national franchise brands around at the time, I felt like I could come in and do some things right that other people were doing wrong. And I, again, didn't really know how I was going to do it. I just felt like if I looked at the industry as a business instead of a trade, then things would find, I would find those solutions over time. And so I literally got my hands dirty. Those early clients of Two Maids and a Mop, pity them, because it was probably a really terrible service offering. But we learned on the job, learned everything from literal work, like how to clean a house and floor and bathroom and so on, to how to hire people to do that, what technology to use. You'd be surprised at the different options of vacuum cleaners there are. So you
in the carpet cleaning business, we know all about it.
Gosh.
That's true. That's true. And so, technology is always important. The talent pool and who you're selecting from to do the work is important. Marketing, of course, is critical. We were just learning on the job. I had a dream and a vision early on to make that one store cleaning business in Pensacola, Florida, into a nationwide brand eventually. Now, nowhere in my planning did I say, boy, this is going to take me 2 decades. It was supposed to be quicker than that, but it did take me 2 decades. But finally we got there. When I exited, we had almost 100 locations across the country.
Yeah. So can I back up real quick? So were you a business major in college or something? And you were like, I want to scale a business and I got to figure out what model I'm going to do.
So I have a biology degree from a football school. Went to University of Georgia. They actually have a college campus there. You go to school and everything.
Really? I thought it was just on Saturdays.
Right. So I have a biology degree, was working inside a lab, didn't love it. My father was in that trade. And so I just sort of followed in his footsteps. And, wasn't making a whole lot of money. I made $21,000. I'm sorry, $20,500. That was my first year's salary. Right out of college, and was proud of it because I was, biology degree from football school. Good luck finding a job, and so moved to Atlanta, worked in the lab for years, was just what they call a bench, a chemist, a bench chemist, and thought that was going to be my life. But, I didn't really know that you could enjoy what you're doing. I thought work meant work, like painful labor, things that are going to make you not like it. Like you're supposed to walk into your home at the end of the day unhappy. I just thought that's how life was supposed to be. I was getting a paycheck, and so that was the world I was living in. It took sort of waking up to the world. Part of it was, I'm sure, just getting older and maturing and growing. But there was one like seminal moment that I talk about a lot. There's this guy that maybe you've heard of named Warren Buffett that I stumbled into his story and read a book about him, eventually read multiple books about his background and his life. And beyond all the investing and money and all that cool stuff, what I learned is that he loved what he did. There are probably plenty of people out there who would think what he does is completely boring. It's terrible. I hate it. But he loved it, and he called it tap dancing to work. And so instead of just dreaming about how do I get to become a billionaire like Warren Buffett, I dreamed of one day tap dancing to work.
Sure.
And so I felt the way to do that was to carve my own path, start a business. And so I didn't, have a ton of money behind me. I didn't really know how I was going to be able to start this business with that limited amount of capital. And so honestly, part of that, home services, the consumer service industry was attractive just because the barrier to entry was small, was lower.
Yep.
And that's what
especially maid service.
Right. Yeah. It's even today, it's not 20 years ago, but 20 years ago, it was certainly easy just to, as long as you had a vacuum cleaner and you called yourself whatever cleaning company, LLC, you were a cleaning company.
Yeah.
So, and there were in every market across this country, there were hundreds of those folks who called those cleaning companies.
But it's a lot of chucking a truck, right? It's like one owner operator, not scaling at all in any way.
Yeah. So what I found is that in every trade, any consumer service trade, whether it's plumbing or cleaning or moving like we're doing now, there are folks that really love it. You know, I wasn't one of those folks. Like, I didn't love the trade, but there are folks that really love it and think that all those folks that don't love it are terrible. And so they want their dozen cleaning clients, you know, like, I'm going to clean 2 homes a day, 5 days a week. I got me 10, 12 clients. That's going to pay for, you know, my bills. And that's all I really want. I don't
Yep,
want
you're
to worry about
comfortable, happy
marketing
with that.
plans.
Well, they want a job,
Or they
right?
want
I
a
mean,
job.
that's what that
Absolutely.
is. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
you own a job, which is fine. That, you know, I mean, I'm not into that, but you know, there's nothing inherently bad about
Wrong
that.
with that at all. Yep.
But
And
Ron, you're not wired for that.
right. And I'm glad you said that, because that is true. Because at the end of the day, tap dancing to work is different for everybody. Everybody
Exactly.
has a different motivation for what happiness looks like. And there are people, I would tell our clients, early on, I was very much in the weeds of the business. So I knew the first and last name and the address and the dog's name, you know, at every one of our clients. And so I would talk to people, and sometimes 2 Maids and a Mop was the perfect fit for that client. In other cases, they needed another company that could be more personal, you know. And so for those folks, those folks that had 10, 12 clients a week, and that's all they wanted, they were the perfect fit, you know. And that cleaning business owner that only cleaned 10 or 12 homes a week was happy, you know. So
Yeah.
not for me to say, it's not for me to judge to say if that's the right way or the wrong way. It's only for that person, you know. And so for me, I'm an entrepreneur first and foremost, and I love the idea of a challenge that seems ridiculous. You know, I come from a really small town in southern Georgia, and nobody comes out of that place, you know, and does anything big. And so I, for whatever reason, always said that I'm going to be that guy, you know.
Yeah.
And so I've worn that underdog label for most of my adult life, and that's what makes me happy. I love the fact when somebody says you can't do it, it just makes me want to do it at that point. So
well, let's dig in for a second for the listener, if you don't mind. So it's a big leap from owner operator to then, you know, because I see it as 3 stages, right? Owner operator, turnkey business. I don't need to be there, but it still runs. But then to replicate and franchise, that's a whole another stage. So can you walk us through those 3 stages? Because they're big jump, especially from number 2 to number 3 is a big jump, I would think.
So here now at Pink Zebra Moving, we've lived that. When I exited 2 Maids and a Mop, we had a decision to make. Do we purchase an existing moving business and just learn from them, kind of piggyback off what they already know and just accelerate? Or do we go back to our startup roots like at 2 Maids and just start from the ground up? And we were on both sides of the fence throughout the journey. Eventually we decided to become a startup again, mainly because it was very difficult to find moving companies that had a value beyond yesterday's move, you know. And so we went back to the drawing board. We didn't know a whole lot about moving. And so
did you look at other companies? Did you talk to other companies to acquire other companies, and they didn't have a perspective like you had? There wasn't the similar values at all of anybody?
We did, yes. So we're based here in the Southeast, and so the initial search was restricted to just the Southeastern region, but we eventually expanded across the country because we thought we were just being too limited. But it turns out, whether you're in New York City or San Diego, that moving companies in general kind of all operate. There's some great guys out there that are making a ton of money in this industry.
Sure.
But all of the information is in the owner's head. So when you buy a small business like a moving company, the owner they want to go buy a boat and go fish. You know, they don't want to tell you how this works for the next 2 years. So no one was able to say, I have a documented process for this, you know, like simple things like stacking the truck, you know, like that process changes based on what you're doing, you know. And so as an owner of a moving company that maybe has been doing this for 20 years, they can walk into every situation and immediately, without even thinking, it's just all instincts, tell you exactly how to stack that truck top to bottom without there being any damages and how to be efficient and all that. But to say, okay, instead of you going and showing me every time, write that down, teach me how to do that. Couldn't do that, you know. So we decided after searching across the country to just learn it ourselves. literally get our hands dirty.
Can I interject, Ron? I have in front of me your LinkedIn post, and I want to read this because I think I really related to this in a lot of ways. Obviously, Larry and I didn't franchise, but we built we systematized our business. And this really resonated with me. It says, we knew nothing about moving, not even a little bit, nothing at all. Sure, we had built relationships with a few people in the industry, but the idea of loading and unloading a truck was pretty close to a foreign language to us. Unfortunately, the consultants we hired to teach us the industry were better at spreadsheets than lift gates. So we hired industry veterans and leaned on them for advice. Turns out no one does moving the same way. And all of our industry veterans believe that basically their method was the only method. Yep. And, Larry and I, when we went to, we did have help, but, at the end of the day, a lot like what you were saying, and this was what resonated, we were just like, we need to start from scratch and learn this ourselves, because I don't want to just inherit the bad habits of another person. We're going to create bad habits ourselves too, right? But yep. if you come in with fresh eyes, it's almost better sometimes.
So we didn't. Startup life is not for the faint of heart, so whether you've got a large capital base or not, it's still hard work. There's sacrifice that has to come with that hard work. And there's a lot of painful moments because you make mistakes when you're starting something up, so I didn't necessarily want to go through that mistake-like experience, but I also didn't want to, just because this moving company in Denver, whatever, was super successful and generating millions of dollars of revenue every year consistently, how they even purchased or leased trucks, that process was different than what the folks in Atlanta did. And so I found myself wondering, well, who's right, Atlanta guy or Denver guy, And so I said, well, let's just live it. Let's just live the life. And that means we're going to make those mistakes and we got to deal with those mistakes, but we'll also learn from those mistakes. Whereas instead of having to learn from someone's words, we'll learn from our actions.
So does that mean that there's like Pink Zebra, Birmingham, and you're the general manager? Is that what that looks like?
No, originally
at the beginning.
On, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like full startup mode. You like sitting there in an office going, okay, I guess I'm the general manager of a moving company now. Let's figure out how to do this.
I will say that. So early on at Two Maids, that was absolutely it. I cleaned the homes, did all the marketing, made all the sales calls, did the in-home estimates, hired the folks, and so on. Handled all the customer service issues. Pink Zebra, we're fortunate that we've got a successful exit from Two Maids. And so I was able to surround myself with strong people that believed in what we were building. And so it was bigger than just me.
Okay, good.
So while I was and still am very much present on a daily basis, I wasn't having to push every button, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question, really.
Yeah. So I'm crazy, but not that crazy.
So did you assemble a team of industry veterans, or did you just pick good people and say, we're going to learn how to do this from scratch?
So two parts to that answer. Number one, we were able to source some people locally in the Birmingham area that knew about my story. In Birmingham, we were one of the bigger deals of last year, and so it made a lot of publicity, and we got a lot of coverage from that. And so lots of people were knocking on my door saying, hey, whatever your round two is, I want to be a part of that. And so I was able to find people that were energetic and passionate about what we had built and wanted to redo it and be a part of the second wave. The other is we had to bring industry experts in. And so those folks came from all over the country. And so a lot of those were remote, and we would work with them via Zoom. And, from time to time, they would fly in and they would spend some time with us in Birmingham as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you started franchising then how quickly? Right off the bat?
No. So we looked at our ramp, we call it, in sort of three phases. We're in phase two right now. Phase one, we had to learn the industry. We talked a lot about that, but beyond just learning the industry, I want to change the industry. Like, I don't even want to disrupt it. I want to change it, and so I feel like there's an opportunity for us to own a subcategory of this larger market And to do that, we had to test some ideas. And so we want our brand to be known as like sort of the Disney of moving. Like we're the Globetrotters even of moving, you know. So we have all these crazy wild ideas that we, in some cases, literally throw against the wall.
You mean you're like putting entertainment into it?
We think of ourselves as an entertainment business that just like literally happens to move. And so some of those ideas that are inside my head and other people's heads sound really good until they're in real life, you know. And so we had to put those into practice. And sometimes they worked, oftentimes they did not. And so when they did not, we said, let's don't do that again.
Yeah.
And so it took us about a year to live that journey, to say this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work. And then when we looked at everything that worked, we had to figure out, is there profits in this business now? You know,
Right.
So just because you made customers happy, if you're not making money by making customers happy, what's the point of it? You know,
well, and you can exceed, you can exceed their expectations, but not have enough margin to keep going. Like, I mean, you can over service somebody.
It
costs money to service people.
Well, Larry and I had that problem. I'm sorry. In our carpet cleaning business, we did that early on. We were like so great at service. We would get nothing but 5-star reviews, but we're we're not making the profits we want to make. So we had to get those to become even. Yeah, raise prices and maybe cut a couple things out. So I know what you're talking about.
So that was our 1 year. That was phase one. And so I'd love to talk about some of those things because it was actually, even though there was a ton of red ink on our side of the business, it was one of the more fun years of my life because we were able to just test so many fun things.
Yeah, it's fulfilling because you're learning the whole time.
Yeah. And so we had to figure out not only like what to charge our customers, but what to pay our employees. What incentives were required to get our employees to do some of these things because we were hiring movers. Like go back to the Globetrotters example. If you went out and got LeBron James and said, "Hey, LeBron, come play for the Globetrotters," he'd say, "No, I'm a basketball player. I'm not a showman right now."
Right.
Maybe 20 years from now when he's not as young as he is today, maybe that's a part of his life. But we were hiring movers, so we were hiring all these LeBron type movers. And so we were telling them, you're going to be a mover. You're going to pick up heavy stuff and load it on a truck and unload it eventually. But on top of that, you're going to put on some theatrics, and so these are the things we want you to do. And typically these aren't small guys,
Yeah, they're like, I'm not doing that.
Right. Like you tell one dude that can lift a house that he's going to dance halfway through his job. He's like, "What are you talking about, man?"
Dance. That's like asking Eric to dance.
Yeah, it ain't happening. Well, so it means that all right, let me ask you a question then. So do you do some sort of personality profile during the interview process? Because like Larry and I are a perfect example. Larry'd be like, "That's a job I want." And I would be like, "I'd rather cut my arm off than work for you." Like, cause I'm not going to dance, right? I'll lift things, but yeah. So
I'll tell you,
that's a personality profile.
We did learn no one's going to dance. So that was, but what we did learn is we can have a version of that. So I'll tell you, this is a fun one for you. So in moving, I don't know if you guys have ever hired a moving company before, but
I got a moving story for you in the last couple of months.
So every customer that hires a moving company at some point during moving day says this. They go, "How do you guys do this every day?" Like, "Oh my gosh," especially, in the summertime, it's hot here in the South, and around 1-2 o'clock, the customer, trying to be nice, says, "Oh my gosh, how do you do this every day?" And so we heard that over and over and over again. And that was when we were supposed to dance. Like that was our tag. When we heard somebody ask that question, we said, "Everybody dance." The movers said, "I ain't dancing." So now we do 20 push-ups.
I ain't dancing.
They'll do push-ups.
Yeah, see, I do the push-ups. I'm down for that.
So everybody, unless you're holding a china cabinet, everybody drops and gets 20 when the customer says that during the day.
That's great. That is great theater of business right there.
What are you doing? I'm doing push-ups. What does it look like?
And the customers eat it up because they see everybody doing like 20 push-ups, So
yeah.
what are you guys doing?
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. So how do you get yeah, like, so nobody has a problem with the push-ups? They're like, sure, no
They love
problem.
it. They love it, because, the crazier thing, you may know this too with their techs and everything. These guys will work all day lifting heavy objects, and then they go to the gym afterwards.
Oh yeah. They're, the best technicians are very physical people, just in
Right.
general. They just
Yeah, well,
love to
yeah.
move.
they're taking care of themselves so they can do their job better. And it's just who they are.
Yeah.
I have noticed, I love the almost 20 years at Two Maids and a Mop. All great memories. But what I've noticed here is that, no disrespect to the cleaning industry employees, but moving industry employees, the movers, they seem to have a bit more pride in their work. It's not just a job, it's an actual passion for most of the people. Now, every now and then you hire somebody, they just need a paycheck, but
Sure.
a lot of movers treat it like a brotherhood, and take pride in that.
Do you think it's because it's just so freaking hard? Like, yeah, I think that hard work and suffering brings people together. Like in our water damage restoration division, that's how it was. It was like they were suffering daily, and it made them like it more almost.
I feel, yeah, I mean, anytime you sweat together
Yeah.
and something good comes from that, you do create a bond between the people you're working with. And
Well,
you don't
and
want to
the-
let them down.
And
like
the other thing is you're often carrying things together, right? You're doing everything together because they're big.
And you also know, if you don't show up the next day because you just don't want to, you know what all those folks are going to have to do because of your absence.
Yep.
Yeah.
That much harder. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, we have plenty of challenges. We've had
Sure.
a fist fight or two. But outside of that, we
And
that we didn't have that in the cleaning world. There was
Down out of the girls beating crap out of each other.
no.
Mops over their head, whacking them in the head.
Oh, yeah. We had our moments too, Ron. We had
Was
all
that you and Larry? You
Oh, us too. But
Yeah, us too. We'd scare everybody away. The two
yeah,
of us would go
Larry
at
and
it.
I, because Larry and I are college roommates. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. So we've been doing this like almost 40 years. And in the shop, if we weren't getting along, we'd be like yelling at each other across the room, and you could see everybody just scatter. They're at it again. We learned not to do, we'd kind of look at each other because we wouldn't be as mad at each other as they would think we are,
Right.
and we'd look and be like, we got to stop doing this. We're
it down
scaring
again.
everybody.
Our best, you probably have plenty of great stories, but our best one during the early days, we of Pink Zebra, we didn't have the hiring practice down as much as we do now. And so we hired people because they had moved in the past and said, go. Well, two guys just had different ideas on how to move one day. And so thank goodness the customer wasn't there, but they got in a fist fight in the
At the
backyard
house.
at the house. And the job went into the evening. And so the next morning we were aware of it. We talked to them and they were totally fine. And we're like, what
So
happened?
did they duke it out and then go back and pack the rest of the house out?
They duked it out, finished the job, and then on the way back in, since it was the evening time, had dinner together.
Yeah.
It's a lot like sports though. Emotions run high.
Right.
And you just kind of, I'm not saying anybody should be fighting in the backyard, but you just work it out and you just move on.
Yeah. And we had to let them go, but they were surprised because the next morning they were totally cool with each other.
So how did you guys know that they were duking it out in the backyard?
We have cameras on the trucks, and so you could see it
So
happen.
somebody's monitoring these cameras, seeing two guys throw down wherever it is, in front yard, backyard. in the
I
house.
pity the manager, whoever your manager was, and then somebody walks in the office and says to he or she, Bill and Steve are duking it out in the backyard.
Back of the truck.
I'm just glad there wasn't a customer at home. Yeah, that would not have been good.
Or that it was on their cameras.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully nothing was damaged as well, my lord.
Yeah. So that's a different type of entertainment. That's not what we're going for.
No. It's very kind of WWE-esque. It's like go to a hockey game. You know, you get some moving and a fight breaks out.
But yeah, I'll tell you, it has been not just fun, but very rewarding, because most of the people who work for us, from the movers to the folks here in our corporate headquarters, we all have this huge dream. You know, like we've done it already. A lot of people that work with us in their corporate office have been with us at Two Maids. And so they've lived that life already before. And so they've seen it happen. But everyone else is just sort of hearing about this and reading about this. And they, hear about this story of how one guy started a cleaning business and made it into a, 4,000 employee national brand. And let's do it again, And so everybody is so fired up, for the lack of a better word, about what we're doing and what's in front of us.
So can we back up a little, Ron, before I want to talk about Pink Zebra and the franchise and all that, but I want to back up because you said something earlier that, you said you kind of picked moving because you saw there's what you perceive as problems in the industry, and then you feel like you can fix those. So enlighten us. What are the problems in that industry, and what do you guys
ever hired a moving company has got a war story, so there's a lot of battle scars out there. So it happened a couple of years ago. My mother-in-law, I'm one of the few folks out there that loves their mother-in-law, so I'm totally cool with it. And so she was moving. She's single.
Eric does too.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law's lived in our home for 21 years.
Oh, wow. And you still love her.
Yeah, I do love her.
All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
She needed to hire a moving company because she was downsizing, retire. She was living on fixed income. And so she wanted to move into a smaller home. And this is before I knew a whole lot about moving, asked for my help with that search. So she goes out and there's 3 or 4 quotes she receives, literally all over the place, from $1,000 to $4,000. And, they all look the same. They all say the same thing. So why would you not select the $1,000 quote? And that's what both of us did. Like, she ended up, it was her money, it was her choice, but we worked together on it. And she said, okay, I'll hire this moving company for $1,000. It was actually $800. And so when you think about that, yeah. When you hear $800 and a competing local moving company says $4,000, and no one tells you why there's such a wide difference in price, you allow the consumer to make that decision.
Right.
And it's all a commodity to us. We don't see.
Well, I was going to say, the problem is you're now just basing it on price because you don't know what else to ask and you're not being educated.
Exactly. So as you can imagine, the $800 choice was bad. And everything that could go wrong went wrong, from broken items to late, it took way too long, to rude behavior, to even some just weird, just actions inside the home. And then on top of all of that, once she got the bill, she had me on her phone, and she walked into the office, and I heard her talking to the manager, and she said, hey, I've got this $4,000 bill. It was supposed to be $800. Nobody told me that until like now.
Bait and switch.
Yeah. So what can we do about it? They started laughing at her. I heard it over the phone. They laughed at her. She's a retired, she was just crying, and just embarrassed, and ended up paying the $4,000 because what else was she supposed to do? And that was that. So from that moment on, I said, there's a problem. When you spend $4,000 and it's supposed to be $800 and you're not happy, that's a broken industry, in my opinion. And so I looked at it not from a business perspective at that time, more from a consumer perspective. And once I said, well, maybe that's just a bad situation in Birmingham, Alabama. And what I just started Googling moving companies all over this country, and everyone from Seattle to Miami had the same issue over and over and over again. And that's when I said, let's tackle it. Let's go.
So, Ron, can I tell, I recently had a moving company horror story that I think you'll appreciate. So I think the listeners would too. So, so my dad passed away fairly recently, and my mom, was good. We were going to sell the house and move her thing. I grew up in Maine, and then I live in Utah. So she's moved out to Utah. So we're going to move, quite a bit of her stuff from Maine to Utah. And I don't live there, so we're kind of going back and forth. And what happened was all of the moving companies that have been around town forever that I knew growing up, they're all booked out solid, right?
Sure.
I mean, till like late fall. So I'm like, oh, that's not good. And I told my wife, can you just find me a mover? And my wife, she worked in our service business for a long time. So she knows, what she's looking for and all that. So she comes back and said, look, I found the next best one. It has good reviews. I'm not so sure the reviews are real, but and here's the price. And the price was middle of the road. And I said, okay, well, just take it. I'll be there. So the day comes for the move, and up pulls a budget rental truck, like 26 footer or whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, not loving that, but it's hard to get trucks right now. So I'm looking out the window.
Yeah.
And then, they've got 4 dudes packed in the front of a 3-man truck, right? And I'm like, okay, that's not a good sign either. Nobody has a uniform on. It just seems sketchy from the get-go, right?
Sure.
Well, Larry and I have done enough moving through our restoration business because we were pulling contents out. So I'm getting these bad vibes, and they're trying to get money up front and all this. Like, all of a sudden, all the rules of engagement are changing in the driveway. And I'm like, okay, this is not going well. So I said, well, before we do that, can you pop open the trunk? I want to see, the truck. I want to see what you have for materials for packing out. My mom has tons of china and all this stuff. They had nothing.
Oh,
They didn't have a dolly. They didn't have paper. They didn't have bubble wrap. They didn't have blankets. And my buddy was there, who's a retired cop. And he was like, dude, these guys are just going to steal all. They're just literally going to drive it 2 miles and just start selling it all. Right. So obviously I kicked him off the job, and then I ended up getting a 26-foot U-Haul, and I packed the house out myself and drove it across the country, which I was super pissed about. But, I mean, I think that happens every day. And the person who's maybe less savvy than the 3 of us would be like, oh, well, I don't know what else to do. So I guess I'll just do it. And
you feel like you had the physical ability to do it. Not everyone can do that,
barely, not really.
And so, yeah, you feel sort of like a hostage. Yeah. And so,
yeah, I felt like a hostage. And I mean, I sent them packing, but then I was totally hosed.
Yeah. It's a bizarre industry, because I feel like, in other home service industries, like what you guys are in, oftentimes the tickets can be very high, but that's usually because there's equipment involved. It's not all time. In our industry, it's for the most part time. And so, there's $5,000-$10,000 tickets that is 100% labor. So when you think about that, like if you spend $5,000 for someone's time, and at the end of that, you're unhappy, that's weird. Like I can't think of it. If you paid $50 for food tonight just for yourself and you weren't happy, you wouldn't go back to that restaurant.
Right.
But moving companies over and over again continue to get customers because there's just not enough people out there that recognize that there's a better way. Like it's what you see out there in the moving industry, probably a lot of other home service industries today, is what it looked like 20 years ago. There's not a lot of evolution.
So then what is the evolution that you're bringing to the market? Like, just maybe name us some things that would resonate.
So it's two big words: customer experience. That's something that we've believed in at Two Maids, and certainly here. It was a harder sell at Two Maids because over 20 years a certain culture existed, and it was difficult to. The ship was, you've heard the metaphor: the ship's too big to turn quick, and so that's what I found myself doing at Two Maids, is throwing all these ideas against the franchise network wall. And people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. We're making money and doing things our way. We don't mess anything up. Well, with a startup, you can mess everything up. And so that's what we've been doing. So when it comes to customer experience, we think that we can create what we call unique and remarkable experiences for our customers every single time. And so most of what we do is structured. Every now and then we try to do some things that are just specific to the customer. I'll give you a couple examples. I love these two things. They're kind of our trademarks right now. And I don't mind if every moving company that hears it does it, because it's a lot easier to talk about it versus doing it. So the first thing we do is we don't put this on our website. We don't talk about it in our sales calls. Nobody knows about it. It's a complete surprise every time. But the day before a move, we call you around sometime early afternoon, and we say we're bringing dinner. Like, what do you want? We'll give you a couple of choices: pizza, Italian, whatever you want. We're going to bring it to you tonight. It's on us. And oftentimes people say, no. What are you talking about? Like, that's crazy. And we're like, okay, well, we're gonna feed somebody. And so every now and then we'll feed the homeless guy down the road.
Sure.
But usually when people hear that we're going to feed somebody, they say, well, you might as well feed us. And so we literally hand deliver that meal.
That's huge
to the customer. And we call it, it's a surprise to them. It's just food, and typically our tickets are less than $100.
Right. Yeah.
Versus the actual average ticket of, $4,000 or $5,000 for the move.
Yeah.
You would think that $100 free food delivery was just gold, because most people, we've had people cry. We've had people literally cry and say, no company's ever thought of me this way before. And it starts the relationship in a very strong way.
Yeah, that's marketing genius. That's great.
Right. So like in your case, you had your first impression of your moving companies when they pulled up. And it wasn't good.
No.
If the night before they said, hey, let me bring over some pizza, like maybe the next morning it goes a little bit better, even if they do show up in a non-branded truck, so that's one fun thing we do. The other, I can keep going, so I'll try to limit it to just a couple. The onboarding process, so in the cleaning business, people didn't think far out typically. Like every now and then they did, but the average customer saw a dirty house and said, I need to hire someone to clean this dirty house tomorrow. Let's do this. It was that kind of decision making, quick. Moving, people think way out. It's not. Every now and then somebody calls on Monday afternoon and says, let's come out here tomorrow morning, but that's rare. It's typically at least a 2-week time frame in between what we call book date and move date, because in some cases it can be 6 months, but during that 2 weeks, let's say, which is usually the average, what we call wait time, most moving companies do nothing. They put you on their schedule. They say, here's the estimate. We'll email this to you, and then we'll see you in 2 weeks. So I already talked about the free food delivery, but what we do, we think our job is to onboard a customer during that 2-week, or if not more long process, and do everything from entertain them with funny jokes about ourselves to introducing them to the movers they're gonna interact with throughout the day.
So
when our movers show up, they know what football team they like. They know if they have children, at home. They know if they have, if they like Italian versus Mexican food. We try to let them know who they're working with. So when they walk in the front door, they know that person's name. It's not just a mover with a shirt on. That's Joe. I know Joe. He likes Mexican food on Tuesday nights.
Yeah. No, that is big. It sounds simple, but very few people ever do it. Larry and I used to do that with our cleaning clients. We'd have the guys, we'd give them Starbucks cards, and their thing was to call before they arrive and say, hey, I'm on my way. I'm going to swing by Starbucks. What do you want? Well, what are we doing? It's the law of reciprocity. If I give you something in advance, then when we go to do the work, they're going to feel so much better about us. They're going to want to do more cleaning or give our technician a better tip or whatever.
Right. And one of the funnier things we do, I think you guys will like this. So we're movers, so we're supposed to be strong. Oddly, not everybody is as big as you would think. Sometimes the smallest person is stronger than the biggest guy, but yep. Anyway, we every time someone's hired, we send them to a local gym, and we send a videographer with them, and we get them to use all this equipment, and we video them. And so whenever someone books us, we send that customer a video of us working out.
That is awesome.
Getting ready for their job.
Like the Rocky soundtrack in the back. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, that's a good
idea. We're preparing for your move. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's all if we can make someone laugh and just go, well, this is not a normal moving company, now, because we're like every moving company. We're going to ding the wall. We're unfortunately every now and then going to damage something.
Yeah.
We're going to take longer than sometimes we think we should,
Yep.
And so when those negative things happen, if we're a stranger to that customer and
Yeah.
the negative thing happens, we're in trouble. But
Yeah.
if we're not a stranger to them, now those mistakes you can look past those. You can say, okay, I get it. You messed up, but you're going to take care of this. I know you are because of all this other stuff you've done.
Yeah. Larry, that was Larry's line whenever he would go do bids and estimates and meet people, even just marketing at like Chambers of Commerce. Larry would always say, look, we're in a business where things go wrong, right? You wouldn't have even called us if something hadn't gone wrong. So know that things might go wrong, but if they do, we'll fix it. Right. Like that went so far because you're already saying like, look, we're not perfect, but if we're imperfect, we're not going to just bail on you.
Right.
I think people want that more than anything.
I look at, I tell this example to everybody, and it's a ridiculous analogy, but it still hits home usually. So my wife, this was true story a while back, a couple of years ago, I guess now, called me at work. It was lunchtime or whatever. Said, on your way home later today, I need this particular thing from the grocery store. I don't even know what it was for dinner. I'm cooking this, whatever, tonight. I'm like, got it. And like most husbands, I completely forgot it, like drove home and said, oh, didn't get it. Sorry. Well, so she didn't divorce me. I did have to go get it.
I was going to say, she told you to go make it right.
I did go make it right. She wasn't happy for a few minutes, but we moved past it and all is well. If someone paid you to bring that to their doorstep at 5:00 that afternoon and you didn't show up at 5, there's no recovery because we're strangers. We don't have a relationship. Yeah. So we think that's our job as a service provider to build a relationship with our customers, not to just fake it just because we think we're going to mess up. But the truth is we will. We're gonna nick a wall, as we're bringing the cabinet down, and so when that happens, they need to know that we're not going to run away from that. We're going to repair that. We're going to fix it. Everything's going to be okay. You don't have to scream. You don't have to throw us out the door.
What you're doing is you're building social capital with them before you ever show up, so that therefore they already feel like they know you and have been dealing with it. It almost feels like they've been dealing with you on multiple jobs, even though it's probably the first job.
Right.
Because you've touched them so many times.
Well, and the other side of this is this industry, like a lot of home service industries, has a bad name, and so people think, this is going to be terrible. I'm going to spend $4,000 and I'm going to hate it. These guys are going to be a little sketch, Are they going to steal my stuff? They're going to break my stuff? It's just a negative before anything happens. And so we're trying to turn that upside down and just be a different type of moving company. And it's been fun. It's been fun making people surprised. That's sure. Rare to happen in this industry.
Yeah. So how many franchise locations are there now?
So that's a great question. So right now we have 2 locations open. We made it through phase 1, which was just figure out how to make money, making people smile.
Right.
Phase 2, we wanted to sort of tiptoe into the franchise world. We didn't necessarily want to open 100 stores quickly because we needed to know the industry more, honestly. And so we think our initial franchisees, we're telling every one of them, you're a part of this journey. So the franchisees we're bringing on now will not be the franchisees that we bring in 5 years from now. 5 years from now, a franchisee that joins the Pink Zebra network is just going to say, tell me what to do and I'll do it. We're asking franchisees right now to help us learn.
Yeah. It's like they're part of a beta test.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways.
So it's not for everybody right now as a result, because a lot of times franchisees don't want to think that way. They want a playbook that says ABC equals whatever.
Yeah.
And so,
because it's almost the opposite of what you think of franchise. Like Larry and I are the guys who would love to do that, right? Because we didn't have a franchise. We did everything from scratch. We built all the systems out. So we're like, yeah, that's the fun part. But a lot of people who buy a franchise are like, I'm buying it. So the fun part's cashing checks. I don't want to do this.
So phase 2, we wanted to open a dozen or so. So that's
Okay.
sort of our magic number. We've got 2 open, one in Birmingham, our backyard, one over in Athens, Georgia, Go Dogs. And then we've got 5 more in pre-open stage right now. It takes us about 90 days to get them open.
All in the Southeast?
All in the Southeast. We have selected markets outside of the Southeast that we're really excited about. Dallas, DFW area, we're really excited about that. Phoenix and DC, those 3 markets we really want to be in. And so we're trying to find people in those markets that believe in what we're doing and want to grow with us the way I talked about. After we get through these dozen or so early stores, sometime next year, we're going to sort of hit the gas pedal and go. We feel like we already have seen that we can grow as fast as we want to right now. But if we were to open 100 stores in 24 months, I don't know if we would have the same type of spirit that we have right now. And so I want us to always have this sort of underdog, entrepreneurial, hustler mentality. And going too big, too fast can hurt that.
It'll damage the service that you're giving to these people that are buying into you.
Yeah.
You have to service them. You have to take care of them. And a lot of people, they have needs. And if you don't deliver the value, it's just like they're your clients.
Right. I would think a franchise network, just like a company, has a culture, and you want to make sure you're protecting the culture as you grow it. Am I wrong on that?
Oh, 100%. Because with what we've got, like we talk about systems and process, we've got all that. And so a lot of that, some of that came from our 2Maids world, like certain vendors and tech partners. In other cases, it was specific to our industry. And so we had to test it and learn from it and beta test it. But we've got all of that. But at the end of the day, we believe we are always growing. So what we're doing with this free dinner, by the way, the reason I tell every moving company steal it, that's fine. If every moving company 2 years from now is feeding people the night before, that's okay with us, because by then we're going to be doing something new. And so we are continually growing and evolving over time. And whatever we did 2 years ago, hopefully we're still doing it, but then some, so.
Not only that, Ron, but and I know that 99 out of 100 companies would never do that in a million years anyway.
You were right. So the industry, I love this industry and I love the people in it, but I don't know if they love us. We've had a few people pretty upset about what we're trying to do. Just 2 weeks ago, I had a moving company senior exec contact me and say, "Hey, you guys need to be focused on the quality more." Like, of course we do. Yeah, I agree. We need to be good at what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a given.
But throw all that other stuff away. Like, you don't need to worry about free food and all this other crap.
Yeah, he's threatened.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. But
yeah,
to me, it was, it's good to hear, because obviously you, again, like if I was failing at marriage, maybe my wife would have said, "Well, this is it. I'm done. You didn't bring home the stuff.
Right.
So let's get it the big D." So you got to be good at what you're doing. You at least have to be a C student, in order for all this customer experience stuff to work. And so, for instance, if you were to, this is another crazy marriage example. If you cheat on your wife and send her flowers, the flowers are not going to do it, but the flowers without the cheating, probably doing okay.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing too, I want to go back to the industry veteran or whatever that called you, is, they judge. We talk about it all the time in my Super Tech University lessons. We talked about it all the time in our service business. They don't know what to judge us on, so they judge us on the service, right? Like, they figure moving a piano is moving a piano is moving a piano. So everybody can move a piano in the customer's eyes, right? And obviously you can't ding the walls and break the piano and all those things, but beyond that, it's not what they judge you on. They judge you on the free meal and the 5 emails that they get in 2 weeks prior, and the phone calls and all that.
Who's coming to the house, all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
Knowing who's coming to the house. Those are the things that, because a lot of us in the trades, I think, miss the customer aspect of it, right? Like we're not putting our customer hat on and saying, well, what do they want? It's like, I show up and ring your doorbell and you want your carpets cleaned. And I say, get out of the way, lady. I know what I'm doing. I've got the best pre-spray in the world, blah, 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 blah. And, that's not what she wants. She wants me to be nice and listen to her and give her candy at the end and all the things that, we used to just call the theater of business. And that's what you're doing. So
yeah, you don't,
that's how you grow.
An accountant doesn't try to be a better accountant. They all offer very much similar tax filing services. Where they separate themselves is they take people out to lunch. They go fishing with these folks. They know these people. They're neighbors to these folks. They're clients. Because accountants are accountants, or the same thing for moving companies and carpet cleaning companies.
Yeah, totally.
All are the same, so we've got to separate ourselves in a different way. Because customers, like you said, customers assume when you're called Pink Zebra Moving, you should be good at moving. That's what you do. I don't need you to tell me how great you are at moving. I just assume you are.
Right. Yep. That's the baseline. It's what happens after that that matters.
Yeah. You got to figure out the difference between the $800 bill and the $4,000 bill. Which one are you going to go with?
Right.
Present the
so
details.
Let me ask you about that, Ron, real quick. I'm sorry, Larry, but you
go really ahead. No, you're going to ask what I ask, I'm sure.
Like when I was going through my whole thing, they didn't even show up. They just said, well, how many rooms and how many beds? And, like there was no estimator who came to the house and walked in and did all these things. Right. And my wife's just like, there's no estimator. They're just estimating over the phone. And I don't know if that's good, bad, and different, but it seems like on an intricate move, it might be a good idea to actually have somebody go there. So, and I don't know how your business works, but
that is it's according to who you talk to, so all those industry experts we hired, there are clearly two sides of this fence. One says you better go to every house and you need to go walk every inch. And then from that, make create a quote. Others say it's not necessary. And so we're kind of in the middle. There are some situations that are so unique that you do need to go visit.
Yeah.
But we have a national call center we built here in Birmingham. Everybody says y'all and ain't. So if you're in Utah, you got to kind of get used to
that. ain't right.
We don't use the word redneck on this program.
I got it. So we tip 90% of our quotes are via the phone, and so but we use technology to pull this off. So there's two things we use. Okay, one, we have a piece of software that itemizes every room, and so we ask those questions. Dresser, cabinet, bed, whatever. If you want us to disassemble the bed, not disassemble it, and so on. So we go throughout the house, and from that, there's a price for everything that we're going to do. That will, without you knowing anything about the industry, if you just literally ask those questions, we can get the price right about 3/4 of the time within, plus or minus 5%. But, the great thing about the world we live in now, there's so much, there's free technology out there that can be utilized. In our world, most people are moving. So if they're moving, they're selling their house typically, or they're at least leasing their home. Zillow, Realtor.com, you name it. All of those websites, you can peer into someone's house.
Yeah, they're using like Matterport or something, so you can see every inch of it.
Yep. And so it gives us, if someone says I've got a bunk bed in the third bedroom, we can see that bunk bed usually.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. That would, I didn't get that. Apparently, it was just like, how many rooms do you have, and here's price, and then that's what invites the bait and switch. Oh well, now that we're here and the truck's here and it's moving day, it's actually going to be 75% more because we didn't see this.
I will say, in defense of our industry, typically, if you've done it long enough, our software weighs a home. The weight of a home, of the contents of a home, typically, if you've got an efficient team of movers, how long it's going to take based on that weight.
Yeah.
Now, there are certain things that change things. Like, again, you said piano. Piano is going to take a lot longer, even though it's heavy. It's going to take longer than the the couch is,
Sure.
So
That makes sense.
certain things are bigger than weight, but in general, weight tells you how long it's going to take to move.
I think, you were talking about reputation. I think the thing that gets consumers is it's not you guys with the good software doing the phone estimate where it's very close within plus minus 5%. It's the guy who's using that to his advantage to not have information and then show up and then all of a sudden start changing the price all over the place.
I think Larry said bait and switch earlier. That's exactly what it is. I mean, I don't know if it's something that moving companies in general do on purpose, or if it's just something that's just what you do, Now, oftentimes I'm defending the industry.
Sure.
What happens is most of those bait and switches are very genuine, meaning you go out and you do your job and as instructed. And then as you're finishing, the homeowner goes, oh, my uncle has a bed that we also are taking to the house. Can you go pick that bed up? And we're like,
yeah, well, that's fair enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
I get
we'll
that.
go pick up anything from uncle's house, but we're charging you.
Yeah. Well, no, that's fair. I mean, like, hey, I'm going to tell you it's $800, but then once we have all the stuff in the van, I'm going to tell you it's $4,000.
Right.
Like,
and that is unfortunate. And there's not a ton of regulation in this industry. There's a little bit more than you would think. Certain states are more regulated than others, but it's still not highly regulated. And so if you want to be a moving company, you can be a moving company. You don't even need a truck. Like you said, just go rent a budget truck and you're in business.
Yeah.
You don't even need supplies in some cases. You just show up, and it's good and bad. So from our perspective, it's great because that means the bar is very low. People don't have very high expectations of what we offer.
So you can scale through being different and better.
Yeah, we can be a C student and look very smart.
I always did.
I've been doing my whole life.
Yeah, I mean, Larry and I can relate to that statement.
And same thing in residential cleaning. That was the same thing we said there. Now you got to do a lot of things right in this business. Again, if we feed you the night before and then we charge you 4,000 instead of 800, the food is not going to do it.
Right.
But if we do most of those things adequate, then all the other little things we do really stand out. Even the push-up, I talked about that earlier. The push-ups we kind of look at that as a way to just sort of lighten the mood, because it can be a stressful day moving for customers. I mean, one, you got this big bill and you're going to have to pay later today. Every customer is doing the math in their
totally
head. They're calculating it as
it's a lot of money. It's not a $200 carpet cleaning job.
Yep. And so that's going on. There's other stresses, I'm sure there's home stresses that we're not aware of. And we're strangers. And so, it's easy for us to be the bad guys, and so we just want to have a relationship with our customers and do some fun things and silly things like push-ups. That lightens the mood enough for people not to get so caught up in all that crazy pressure that they're going through as a customer.
That's really interesting. So Ron, look, we've gone over an hour. I don't want to take your whole day up. We could probably talk about this all day because it's fascinating, but I want to give you an opportunity to let clients especially know how to get a hold of you, but then also people who might be in the, want to be in the moving industry or interested in franchises, that, how to find you as well.
Absolutely. So we're easy to find, pinkzebramoving.com. Whether you're trying to hire us in one of our locations, again, we're mostly in the Southeast right now. Or if you're interested in a franchise opportunity, we are able to franchise across the country in at least 48 states right now. And we're open to just about anywhere as long as the franchisee understands the kind of phase of growth that we're in right now. Phase 3 is about 6 to 12 months from now. Phase 3 is going to be sort of what most people think of franchising. You come in, here's the blueprint, follow the blueprint, make money, boom. Phase 2, we're looking for franchise candidates that definitely have more of an entrepreneurial mindset, that want big markets, and so that's a special, unique type of character trait that's not for everybody,
Sure.
But if that sounds like something you're interested in, you're not moving every day. You're not on the truck. You're not picking up those heavy items that like the movers are. You don't even have to deal with the clients. You don't have to quit your day job for that matter. It's a semi-absentee franchise, opportunity investment. And but we still want that entrepreneurial mindset, that hustle sort of mentality we talk a lot about. And we feel like those first dozen or so, we've got 7 franchisees. We've got 2 open right now, 5 more in pre-open. We need about 5 more right now that want to be a part of this phase of growth that we're in. Okay. And then after that, we're off to the races. So if you want to learn more about the franchise opportunity or hire us to move you, pinkzebramoving.com would be where you want to visit.
All right.
Do you have an email address or other ways they can connect with you? You have any social media?
Well, I'm a believer in LinkedIn. So if you find me on LinkedIn, I'm easy to find. Ron Holt, 2 syllables, so just type in Ron Holt, and more than likely, if you connect with me and say, hey, I want to talk shop, I love all home services, so if you want to talk home services, I'll have a conversation with you. So it doesn't have to be about moving. I've helped people everything from laundromats to other cleaning businesses. Even, I love talking shop. So
it's great. Well, Ron, it was good talking to you again. It's been a long time, and we're really happy. And look, I love the model that you're doing at it. It gels a lot with what Larry and I do at SuperTech University. It's that same kind of mindset of just looking at a service call different. Because I mean, you could say that a movie it's a service call. It's a big one, but it's I think it's really unique what you're doing, and I think it's going to be really successful. So congratulations.
Well, I appreciate the time to be able to talk about it. Obviously, hopefully you can tell we're excited about what we're doing. We want to change the industry. We feel like there's an opportunity here to do something no one else has really ever thought of. There's a lot of big names in this industry people could rattle off, but for the most part, they all offer the same thing. So we hope 5-10 years from now, when people think about Pink Zebra Moving, we were sort of the catalyst to the moving industry changing. That's our overall goal and vision.
All right. Larry, you want to take us out?
Ron, it's been a pleasure. Anybody that wants to open a movement company and be a franchise of Pink Zebra, get in touch with Ron on LinkedIn. And we are out. Cool. Thank you very much. That was good.
Yeah.